Hi, I'm Sarah Sklar. I'm very happy to be presenting here today. Here's our agenda. And yes, I'm Sarah Sklar. I'm with the Global Development Policy Center. I'm a pre-doctoral research fellow there, and I'm also a PhD student in political science here at BU. So Chinese outward investment has increased dramatically over the last 2 decades, getting much attention in the media and also causing unease among some policymaking circles. So what does the data tell us? For a long time, there was not a lot of data on Chinese investment available, but recently several databases have been published, including by BU's GDP Center. According to the GDP Center data, which includes only loans from the Chinese Development Bank and the Chinese Import-Export Bank, Chinese investment in the past decade has gone primarily to Asia. That's if we combine the two blue sections. 31% goes to Asia, 28% to Latin America, and 23% to Africa. Relative to other investors, however, in 2019, China was the top investor in developing Asia, only the 4th highest investor in Africa, just barely needing out the US, and not even in the top 10 of donors in Latin America, according to UNCTAD data. There's been a lot of recent studies on Chinese investment in various parts of the world, coming to several different conclusions. So if you do a literature review of all the scope of all these different studies, there are several trends that stand out. So some global trends that we see across Chinese investment, regardless of region, are overall Chinese OFDI is very heterogeneous. It's not correlated with the political regime of the host country. And while some may argue Chinese investments prop up autocratic regimes, they're also just as likely to support democratic nations. Also, partner nations have considerable autonomy, control, and agency over the investments. So this image of a big, powerful China coming in and taking advantage of developing economies is simply false. Also, the Chinese development state or the Chinese investment is given by several different corporations. There's a very complicated process within China of giving out that actual investment. So it's not a monolith. You can't look at these investments from China and say that they're very targeted and strategic by the central government. They're actually quite diverse in who is actually doing the investment. Chinese engagement is also very profit-oriented. Infrastructure investments, especially, are business-oriented, while also alleviating some of the excess capacity in the Chinese domestic construction market. The domestic politics in partner countries play a very key role in the relationship with China. Elections can lead to project renegotiations. Elite interests and preferences also play a key role in attracting or managing relations with China. Institutional capacity also plays a key role in negotiating these projects. First of all, in the country's ability to negotiate and also in their ability to implement said projects. So countries with more developed and efficient bureaucracies do a much better job negotiating projects and then ensuring that those investments comply with local labor, health, and environmental regulations. Regionally, we have some other trends. We look at specifically at China's relationship in Southeast Asia. China has a very long relationship with long and positive relationship with countries in this region. Given that history, we can sort of interpret China's strategy in this area to be a recurrent game of hedging. In Latin America, we find that the developmental logic behind the Belt and Road fits very well with local development paradigms. Latin America has historically had several different types of development strategies, ranging from the developmental state to neoliberal reforms. Many have recently settled on what George Heinhe calls the logistic state, which combines neoliberal ideas and particularly liberalism with tactics of the developmental state, such as infrastructure and research and development. In Africa, there's a much stronger emphasis on soft power, fostering these long-term relationships and building a groundwork for future relations, especially with educational exchange programs. In Central and South Asia, nations have to navigate regional politics, specifically balancing interests of China, India, and Russia. And the Middle East, I think, is the most interesting place where China has relatively positive relationships with every government and or governing agency in that region, putting them in a very unique position. However, that's also largely due to them being a relative newcomer in that area. So, thank you.